Yeah. This item over here is what they call hostile architecture or hostile urban design. And you know what? Big deal. I mean, people from first world countries, like Belgium for example, thank you Leopold, they love complaining about things and non-existent problems. I mean, we all know that homeless people are just junkies, druggies and lazy. So you know what? We should install more of this hostile urban design and keep them away from our sites. Unfortunately, there is still many people with this kind of perception for homeless people and hostile architecture. And you know what? We don't blame them. I mean, it's always far more easier to understand a reductionist, impulsive point of view than understanding and comprehending complex research data. For example, not many people know that besides many different problems, homeless people emerge due to issues with issuing personal documents, issues with taxes, spiral debt crisis, family complications, complications due to pain management with painkillers, anxiety, depression, panic attack, chronic stress, and the list goes on. But this time, let's forget about homeless people and focus a little bit more on the other side of the hostile urban design. You're watching Stripping Architecture, and today we'll be stripping the beautiful architecture of our cities and reveal the twisted mindset behind those who apply hostile urban design, or better say, bloody urban design. So you walk by the sidewalk over here in Brussels and then you find these kind of gates. As you can see, we understand that these gates over here are protecting the private zone from the public zone. But there is a difference between protection. If it's protective, for example, in our mindset, these gates, for example, the bars, could have been with a smaller in-between distance, or they could have just filled in the gaps with some little tiny net. But here instead, we have very sharp blades over here. Now we always have to question why such a sharp blade was here installed. Is it the intention to protect or to harm? For example, you may be walking here with your child and they're very explorative creatures, and a child can come here and harm itself. On the other hand, if you don't care about children, if you have a dog, puppy, we all love those furry things, right? They can come here and they might harm themselves. So here we come to the question, the manufacturer, who proposed and designed these kind of spikes which are framing the public space, want it or not, and we know they're a little bit inside the private zone, but they're still part of the public membrane. And this leads us to our first question.
Is this legal?
Being owner of a private space does not mean you can do whatever you want. For instance, if you want to renovate your facade or change the windows, you still have to follow different rules that will satisfy the standards of the common sphere, which means you have to apply for a permit. So how come sharp blades have not been seen as a potential danger, but we're quite explicit that polyvinyl windows are less desired than the wooden ones? Additionally, to us the design of this gate looks like an afterthought or an attempt to spend less money but achieve more fearful security. Usually, the distance between safety bars should be around 11 centimeters. Here, the distance between the bars is around 26 centimeters. That means that this design is saving 1 bar per each 11 centimeters, which means that if this gate over here has 20 vertical bars, in fact, it has to have 40, which equals to less metal and less money. So we obviously see a design loop, and how do they fix this? By adding sharp blades in between. Just imagine that there was some person who said, hey, you know what? We will fill in the gaps with sharp blades. And consequently, there was a person who specifically was creating these sharp metal elements with the purpose of wounding and hurting someone. We will keep repeating this. There is a difference between intention of protecting and hurting.
We are standing on the backyard of a corporate bank in Brussels. They did kind of install big gates for logistic entrances, and on top of them they added these sharp blade sort of cutting edges. This place is super secured. You see the security are coming. There is cameras, there is like alarm, there is like, you're right in downtown. The question is, which is always raising and coming back, what is the purpose of these blades? Is it to scare people, not to climb up, to protect the money that is inside? Or is it just to give a symbol of power for this corporate bank? Or gives it like a citadel feeling? What do you think about it? Is it legal? Did these guys, the corporate bank, applied for a building permit? Because why you are talking about it? Because it's part of the street facades. So when you pass by here every morning, by the way, there are schools here. Kids coming, again, passing by adults, elderly people, and they see this scenery with blades, and they kind of click in their heads. I don't know, we don't know. Actually, we don't bitch on these blades, but we always raise the question, is it normal to have such brutal, hostile, bloody elements in our streets?
Unlike the design of the previous fence, this one looks quite sophisticated. All those spikes being welded in a rotational position around the bar resembles a true effort. That directly indicates that the investor, in this case the bank, was dedicated to pay additional portion of money for something that can make sure that you will be harmed. The executive core for the design of the bank, all those smart and educated people, found it suitable to approve a design of a bar that can guarantee the possibility of harming living beings regardless of the angle they approach. Sorry, but this looks barbaric and medieval, and if they wanted to prevent birds shitting on their gates, they could have thought of another element rather than this torturing machine. Finally, since they were ready to invest into a special bloody gate for extra security, they could have invested into some other creative inventions. They could have created a slippery bar that constantly rotates, for example, just freestyling to provoke your imagination. And slowly we are getting to the most simple example, which is actually the mother of all those bloody urban designs. As you can see over here, we have a fairly high gate. The height of the gate definitely discourages people from entering into the private zone, and there is a lot of signs telling you that this private zone is under camera surveillance. Yet, we have spikes on top of these gates. Now, you may think that this actually is insignificant and naive, but this over here, it is actually the answer of our psychology. You see, even though we have developed all these sophisticated manners of protection, such as cameras, insurance policies, alarms, we still have to put some concept that has been developed into the primitive era of our existence. On a cognitive level, this idea is so deeply and unreasonably engraved into our mindset that we simply expect that on top of the gates we have to see some sharp elements. And of course, in today's liberal capitalist economy, for the manufacturers it goes without saying. They're automatically putting these spike sharp elements on top of the gates. And in order to show their expertise and experience in the field, they also provide you, if the client has more money, provide you with more creative, inspired designs, which actually end up with up and twisted, bloody designs such as those that we have shown in the previous videos. And we're not alone in this. There are many people who just won't install these brutal defensive gates. This matter can really be solved in a much more mature way with the purpose of creating understanding and prevention. For example, this could be solved with gates that are gradually inclining and are offering some additional aesthetics as well. There are also designs where the highest horizontal bar can be quite lower than the highest point of the vertical bars, discouraging climbing. There are also different landscape designs that can help into making distance from the gate. And to finally conclude with this little reflection sketch of ours. We in stripping architecture, we do not believe into the gates because we think they're reflection, a pure reflection of social inequality. We believe that these gates can be replaced by genuine design of the broader context. However, on a real ground, in reality, we understand the need of this gate to emerge. And at least what we can do is to make them less brutal. However, as you can see on the sketch, we see more and more designs in our urban environment how these gates has been designed with the purpose of traumatizing, hurting, luring and trapping the citizens instead of prevention. Thank you very much for staying tuned, and we see you in the next episode. Bye bye.